Hey everybody, Shane here. So I was just reading today in Luke chapter 2, and the story goes like this. Jesus and his parents had went to Jerusalem for the Passover celebration, which would be a pretty normal or typical thing for a traditional Jewish family to do. It says after the celebration, Jesus' parents, Mary and Joseph, turned and they started on the journey home. Well, about halfway on their way home, they realized that Jesus wasn't with them. So, being normal parents, they freaked out, and it says they turned around and went back to Jerusalem. And it says they looked everywhere. And after looking everywhere, they went to the temple and they found Jesus there teaching with the religious scholars and asking questions. And it says Mary went up to Jesus, and you can imagine a pretty normal scene here. Being a normal mom, she's upset and she says, why did you do that to us? We were so scared. We searched everywhere for you, and here we finally found you. And Jesus says to her, he says, but why did you need to search for me? You should have known I would be in my Father's house. What an amazing response right there. What a picture, right into the heart of Jesus, where he says, of course, you should have known I was going to be in my Father's house. It's almost like he says, of course, you should have known this is where I would be. And it just shows you that Jesus loved the house of God. He was passionate about the house of God. Even, as a 12-year-old is the age he would have been at that time. Later on down the line, when he'd actually started his ministry, you might recall another story where he went into the house of God again. He went into the temple again, and he found, that they were selling things in the house of God. They were doing something that the house of God isn't intended to be used for. They were using the house of God and abusing it and using it in a way that it shouldn't have been used. And it says he was angry, and he says, you're turning my church into a den of thieves. And he turned the tables over. It says he was enraged in that story, and you can see in this picture that he is passionate about the house. He was angry that they were abusing the house of God, that they were using it in a way that it wasn't intended to be used. So maybe you've been in a situation where the house of God was misused and it was abused, and maybe that left you bitter. Maybe someone used you in the house of God and they used you up. Don't let yourself give up on the house of God. It is Jesus' plan. It is God's plan for redemption for the world. Just because of one situation, don't give up on the house of God. If you're not in a church somewhere serving, I encourage you, get in the church, build the church. One of the most overused statements in modern day Christianity is, be more Christ-like. But if you want to be more Christ-like, which should be our goal, if that is your goal, then you need to build the church. Jesus was all about the church. You might recall another story where he was talking with Peter, and at the end of this conversation with Peter, he says these very words. After talking about, he asked Peter, who do you say that I am? And Peter said, some say you're this and some say that. But Jesus said, but who do you say that I am? And Peter said, I say that you are the Christ, the Son of God. And Jesus turned to him and said, you are right in saying this. And on that revelation, I will build my house. And the thing at the end of that's incredible that most people miss, they focus on Peter's revelation of God, and that's an incredible part in that story. But the other thing is where Jesus says, I will build my house. I will build my church. There's another place in actually Revelations where it talks about the church being Jesus' bride, and how it talks about him coming back on a white horse to marry his bride. And it's not by accident that they take the most sacred, the most powerful earthly relationship we know, the relationship between a husband and his wife, to describe Jesus' relationship to the church. Jesus is passionate about the church. He's all about the church. And if you want to be about what Jesus is about, then you need to be all about the church. Thanks. Think about it.